The Galactic Academy's assessment hall hummed with nervous energy as 200 cadets from 17 species settled into their seats. This was at the final examination that would determine their placement in the Interstellar Security Force. The test was simple in theory: identify the threat hidden among them before it struck. David sat in row 12, his enhanced Krillian vision scanning the room systematically. Like most cadets, he'd spent months training in threat detection, studying the behavioral patterns of every known hostile species in the galaxy. His confidence was unshakable. 3 rows behind him, Aliana sat quietly, her plain ISF cadet uniform slightly rumpled, her dark hair pulled back in a simple ponytail. Nobody noticed her. Nobody ever did. Commander Zaxithor, a towering Velosian with crystalline skin that refracted light in prismatic patterns, stood at the front of the hall. His four eyes swept across the assembled cadets. "Begin," he announced, his voice resonating through the chamber's acoustic amplifiers. The test parameters materialized on every cadet's neural interface. One entity in this room was not what it claimed to be. One among them was a trained infiltrator from a hostile faction, equipped with advanced camouflage technology and lethal capability. Their mission: identify and neutralize the threat before the 2-hour time limit expired. David immediately began his analysis. The Zenthri twins in row 5 seemed to synchronize possible neural link, indicative of hive mind infiltration. He flagged them. The Moraxian exchange student had peculiar heat signatures, flagged. Even the teaching assistant, a young Seldorian, seemed suspiciously attentive, flagged. Round the room, cadets activated scanning equipment, deployed sensor nets, and engaged in whispered tactical discussions. The air filled with the soft chirps and beeps of detection equipment. Sophisticated algorithms ran pattern recognition across body language, thermal output, and electromagnetic signatures. Aliana remained motionless in row 3, her hands folded on her desk. Her eyes, however, were active, watching, measuring, calculating. She'd identified the threat within the first 30 seconds. It was Commander Zaxithor himself. The clues were subtle, almost imperceptible. The slight delay in his secondary eyelid movements 0.03 seconds slower than Velosian. Baseline. The refraction pattern in his crystalline skin was to perfect, too uniform. Real Velosian skin had microscopic variations, the result of environmental exposure and cellular aging. His was flawless, the mark of holographic overlay technology. But Aliana didn't move, not yet. She'd learned patience the hard way. 90 minutes passed. David had narrowed his suspects to 5 individuals, including the teaching assistant and a suspicious maintenance drone that had entered to repair a light fixture. Other cadets formed tactical teams, some even drawing training weapons, ready to confront their chosen suspects. The Zenthri twins were surrounded by a group of Kaldorian cadets demanding biological scans. The Moraxian student found himself questioned by a dozen interrogators. Accusations flew. Tensions escalated. The hall descended into controlled chaos, exactly what a real infiltrator would want. Aliana checked her chronometer. 15 minutes remaining. She stood slowly, her movements so ordinary that few noticed. She walked down the aisle with the casual gait of someone heading to the refresher. David glanced at her as she passed, just another unremarkable human cadet, probably overwhelmed by the pressure. Aliana approached the front of the hall, stopping 3 meters from Commander Zaxithor. The commander turned his massive head toward her, all 4 eyes focusing with what seemed like mild annoyance. "Cadet, return to your seat. The examination. You're not Commander Zaxithor," Aliana said quietly, her voice barely carrying beyond the first few rows. The room didn't immediately react. Most cadets were too engrossed in their own investigations, but those close enough to hear turned, confusion evident on their various faces. "Excuse me." The commander's voice carried a warning edge. "Your bioluminescent frequency is 0.7% off standard. Your crystalline refraction shows no environmental scarring, despite the commander's documented service in the Kellner system's high radiation zones. Your secondary eyelids move with artificial precision. No organic system is that consistent." Aliana took 1 step closer. "And you're favoring your left mid-limb by approximately 3 degrees, compensating for the weight distribution of a class 4 plasma weapon hidden in a subdermal holster. Commander Zaxither lost that limb in combat 20 years ago and uses a cybernetic replacement. Your hologram didn't account for his medical records. Silence crashed through the hall like a shockwave. 200 cadets froze, their attention snapping to the front. David's enhanced vision immediately ran the checks Aliana had described. His heart sank as his systems confirmed every detail. The commander, or rather, the infiltrator wearing the commander's face, remained still for precisely 2 seconds. Then, with frightening speed, the hologram flickered and died, revealing a sleek Carthaxian assassin, its chitinous armor black as void, its plasma weapon already clearing its holster. The weapon never fired. Aliana's hand moved in a blur of motion so fast it seemed to bend the light around it. A disruption pulse, no larger than a coin, struck the Carthaxian's neural cluster. The assassin collapsed, its weapon clattering harmlessly to the floor, its nervous system temporarily paralyzed. The real Commander Zaxither emerged from a concealed observation room, followed by 3 security officers. His eyes gleamed with what might have been amusement or respect. "Cadet Aliana, explain your methodology." Aliana shrugged, the gesture so human it felt out of place among the alien faces staring at her in shock. Everyone was looking for sophisticated threats, camouflaged weapons, hidden biological agents, disguised operatives among the cadets. But humans learned a long time ago that the best place to hide is in plain sight, in a position of authority, where you're the last one anyone would question. She glanced around the room, meeting David's stunned gaze briefly. "My species spent millennia fighting each other before we reached the stars. We learned to recognize predators wearing familiar faces. We learned that the greatest threats don't hide in the shadows, they stand in the spotlight, giving orders, directing attention everywhere except where it needs to be." Commander Zaxither's crystalline skin rippled in a pattern that signified approval. "Correct. In 300 trials across 57 Academy installations, only 12 cadets have successfully identified the infiltrator. You're the first to neutralize the threat without causing collateral panic or diplomatic incident." He turned to address the hall, his voice carrying the weight of authority. "The rest of you failed because you looked for what you expected to find, not what was actually there. You deployed your technology, your training, your species-specific advantages, and you missed the truth standing right in front of you." His gaze returned to Aliana, who had already started walking back to her seat in row 3, ready to disappear into unremarkable obscurity once more. "Humanity may not have the strongest bodies, the most advanced technology, or the longest lifespans in this galaxy," Zaxither continued, "but they possess something equally valuable: the hard-earned wisdom of survivors. They know how predators think because they've been both prey and predator. They understand deception because they've mastered it themselves." David watched Aliana settle back into her seat, finally understanding why the instructors always said that humans were dangerous, not despite their ordinariness, but because of it. In a galaxy of spectacular abilities and advanced technologies, humanity's greatest weapon was the one thing no one expected: the simple, terrifying clarity of eyes that had learned to see through every comfortable lie.